Now, when it comes to, again, with society deciding that every problem that it has is now going to rely on police to solve, that involves, giving police authority and authority for the use of lethal force. And there's quite a few people that, for lack of a better way of describing it, that kind of authority, that kind of power over other people gets to their head, and they end up gravitating towards abusing that power, getting an ego about it. What kinds of steps were taken to mitigate that when you were in, and do you think those were sufficient? And if they're not, what do you think should be done to try and mitigate that?
Most people are aware that, again, I can only talk about California, and the agencies in the states around where I work required a battery of psychological testing. Was it enough? Absolutely not. It's law enforcement's woefully underscreened in many ways. I mean, they know more about your tax history than they actually do about your psychological development. That's just the reality of it. You also select for certain personality types in law enforcement that may not be conducive to a community policing model if that's what you're going for. But cops, again, I came in just post Rodney King. Cops are still being selected, in my opinion, for the ability to be hyper aggressive. And that's probably what you're thinking of as being, cocky, arrogant. We'd call it badge heavy. That's the term that we typically describe it as. But the other problem is once you have an officer and they are now becoming progressively indoctrinated into the system of law enforcement, because it is a culture, you aren't spot checking your officers to the degree you should as far as where they are psychologically, how healthy are they, unless you've gone through a critical incident and then receive the proper counseling. And in my opinion, it's even when you think you've got enough, you need more. I would call it the standardized use of psychology as a resource in law enforcement is woefully ineffective. Yes, did we have peer counseling? Did we have a departmental psychologist? Yes, we had all those resources, and my department may have been better than most because we had a few people in our upper echelons who had been through critical incidents where they fought some demons afterwards, so to speak. So they put more money into the programs that some agencies didn't. But in my experience, it's lacking. Why aren't officers going? I mean, you got to qualify with your firearm. At least in my department, you had to qualify quarterly. We were considered zealots because we didn't do it semi-annually or annually. But why not have your officer go in and once a year sit down with the departmental psychologist and see where they're at, see whether or not they're still able to manage their stress and their authority appropriately. And that's something that if you did at least on an annual basis would mitigate a lot of problems, in my opinion. But again, unless there's a problem, and someone has to realize there's a problem before someone will react to it. And often that's not how law enforcement handles issues like this.